I had all kind of suggestions for how to make this fun and exciting, and some of those suggestions included interpretive dance, singing. I won't even try to do the singing part. There was another suggestion involved fire. I think fire's fun. Definitely opportunities to be fun here. But before we get started, I do have some formal thoughts and a few slides to share that hopefully make you laugh a little bit, make you think, pull us together a little more tightly as a group. We need to make sure we recognize the planning committee for this incredible conference. So, Jared, we went to Jared. I've been dying to say that for a while. We went to Jared. Julie, the rest of the planning team, if you could stand, we'd love to recognize you right here. Thank you. I think about what Tom Fox shared last night, and I think about what Tim Kite shared this morning. Then I think about all the things that we've been talking about and thinking about in extension, hearing from Bruce, our conversations in the related to the VP conversation on the future, and I think, holy cow, it's amazing how much of this stuff really starts to tie together. And so hopefully you're hearing it, you're seeing it, you're sensing it, you're saying to yourself, wow, there is a theme here, there is an opportunity. The place that we are right here and right now, each of us individually, we have a role, we have a specific role to play, and hopefully you're gaining some clarity. That's really the essence of the comments that I would like to make today. So this is both Joe Lucente saw me in the hallway, he's like, this is your last hurrah, and I said, really it's the first hurrah too. This is my first and last formal address to the group, and so I think that's kind of neat. I'm all about, like Brian said, I like to appreciate things and reflect on things, and in essence, that again is the essence of what I want to try to share with you today. So the goals are pretty simple. I'd like to make you laugh. I'd like to relate a few of the things that have been confirmed in my mind over this past 6 months, and remind you that you are part of something much bigger, something I think that's pretty special. So let's get started. This may come as a surprise to many of you, but really, and it may completely validate the opinions of others, but please realize that there is no one in charge, right? There is no one in charge. And hopefully you've started to hear some of that in what we learned last night and this morning, right? We've heard more and more, and I first heard this a couple of years ago from a speaker that actually presented at a CD unit meeting that was held in Cleveland, and he was with the Northeast Ohio Innovation Fund, and I can't remember his name. I looked all through my notes. I have no idea who this guy was, but he was there to talk to us about complex systems, complex organizations, and he said there's truly no one individual in charge of complex organizations and complex systems. And so when I think of OSU and the larger land grant system that we're part of, I think, wow, Bruce talked yesterday, $5.5 billion annual operation, and the thousands of employees. We're a complex organization. Now, add that to the larger system that we're part of. Think about USDA and the 75 other land grant universities with an extension outreach function. What does it look like from your perspective? I'm sure you've all shared some colorful thoughts at times about what it's like to work here, be a part of this. I've got a slide that I'm going to try to show here. Hopefully this looks familiar. For me, it looks somewhat like this scene from the Thanksgiving, the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. Who's seen that recently? It's a classic. So in this scene, what do we see? Toast, right? We're making toast. So, real quick summary. Peppermint Patty calls up Chuck, right? She calls him on the phone. She's talking away, in essence, including herself and all her gang to Charlie Brown's house for Thanksgiving. All the while, if you recall, Charlie Brown saying, I won't be here, well, Peppermint Patty's not hearing a word of that. So the next thing you know, what the next scene is that the doorbell rings, Charlie Brown opens the door, and the whole crowd comes in and says, well, what do you mean there's no Thanksgiving feast? Well, what do they do? Yeah, they all pull together. They pitch in to create their own little Thanksgiving feast. It includes toast, popcorn, all the kinds of things that kids would think would be ideal Thanksgiving feast material. So when I think about our organization and the way we work, we all have a role here. So given the seemingly never-ending changes and transitions, this revelation that no one is really in charge may be cause for alarm for you, but I don't think it needs to be. So granted, we've enjoyed relative stability with long-tenured Dean Bobby Mosier and Director Keith Smith, but in actuality, we have been transitioning in a number of ways. Look around you now. How many of you joined the organization in the past couple of years? Wow, all kinds of hands. Please keep your hands raised. What about the past 5 years? Wow, even more. This is what makes me feel like an old timer. Past 10 years? Yeah, okay. Those of you who have not yet raised your hand, how many different supervisors have you had in your time with Extension? 2, 3, 4, 5. My point here is that we are a dynamic organization, think the Charlie Brown toast operation, in which every one of us has the opportunity to be in charge of something in some way at some point. So this everyone in charge concept is something some of you may find to be somewhat surreal. Surreal. I love that. Unbelievable. Fantastic. Being a part of Extension, I can think of no better word to describe the wide-ranging experiences I have been fortunate enough to have, and would venture to guess that you would agree. Each day we are given fantastic opportunities to come together with others to effect positive change, to be a part of something much larger, to make a difference in the lives of others, to be in some way in charge. Think about the 20 square feet we learned about this morning. I don't think any one of us has an excuse to say, well, I can't change that, I can't affect that, right? So my Extension career started out with me in charge of the demonstration kitchen, actually in the Fulton County office, Brian. Started in Fulton County. Thank you. So I wasn't literally in charge of the office other than, the kitchen, the demonstration kitchen. I wasn't in charge of that other than that was the location of my desk. So thank you, Greg. I'll never forget that day. I showed up on my first day. I had no clue. I wasn't in 4-H. I didn't know what Extension was. I wear a suit, right? This isn't a suit. These are slacks and a sport coat. I had on full-scale suit. I had one of them, and I thought, okay, after the first day, what am I going to do? And lucky for me, after Greg situated me in the kitchen at a desk with an old computer that had a green screen, that's all I can remember. And I think we wired a phone in from down the hall, 337-9210, right? Still remember the phone number. Greg said he took me to lunch, and that was really the first time we had a chance to visit, and I can still remember the little diner. And he's like, if you know Greg, he doesn't just share like lots, right? But when Greg does share, it's usually really good stuff. And one of the things he said was, you don't need to wear a suit. And I've not worn a suit since. So while the fundamental mission of Extension has remained unchanged, much about how we work and communicate with others is very dynamic. Who here was able to attend the Galaxy 4 conference in Pittsburgh? You remember the cap note address by Bruce McFerrin that day? It was there that we heard his call to engage in disruptive innovation. He had his top 10 list of 8 items. I love that. I still have those 8. Less than a year later, we were in the midst of the Vice President's conversation on the future of Extension. And we would also be engaged in other organizational visioning, futuring, partnering, planning, and learning activities like Extension Reconsidered, the North Central Culture Survey. No doubt we have witnessed much to be excited about in these past couple of years. Today, Dean McFerrin is now the interim provost of Ohio State University. Senior Associate Dean is Ron Hendrick. He's now the acting dean, and here I am in front of you as the interim director. Who would have thought? I am so glad that our new director, Roger Rennekamp, could spend his vacation day with us yesterday, and excited for what our future holds with him officially on board January 4th. There's so very much happening. How could it not be exciting? So I've learned so very much during this 6-month leadership immersion. In the last few weeks leading up to his retirement, Keith Smith mentioned to me that this experience would be like drinking from a fire hose. At times, it also felt as though I was struggling to keep my head above the water. So you have most likely felt like this before, and despite the efforts of Jackie and Morgan yesterday in trying to get us organized with our time and our workspace, most likely we'll feel this way again. But knowing we have colleagues to throw us a lifeline when they see the need enables us to stretch ourselves and learn so many things. So I thank you for enabling me to experience the past 6 months, and thank you for lending me a hand when it was needed. Know that I am here to repay the favor. So at this point, I'd like to share with you some of the things I've learned in this interim period. Really, they've been confirmed in my mind. And I've been accused by some folks before of not necessarily being the first one to the party, so some of this stuff may not be new to you. But what I'd like to think of these, I'm calling the 5 generally accepted truths for Extension. So, truth number 1, much of the iceberg is not easily seen. The organization, our work, the issues are complex, solutions are complex, and the lives of others are also complex. There's a whole lot of complexity here. I couldn't begin to illustrate the complexity of our organization, but I did find a fine example, I think, of complexity online. So here's a snapshot of the complex system known as healthcare in the United States. You can see some of the key players, agencies, and offices, and a multitude of reporting and relational lines. So at this point, I'd like to invite Pat Bebo up on stage to explain this. Pat? Just kidding. So we've all heard this iceberg saying before, I'm sure, but it was confirmed for me in this interim role on a variety of levels. For one, I've gained a much greater appreciation for the complexity of the organization. I've been continually reminded that there are so many moving parts to this organization, and trying to understand it all gets pretty unwieldy pretty quickly. When it comes to our work, you know as well as I do, the programs and research the public actually sees from us is just the tip of the iceberg. Much like the hours of preparation and program support devoted to a program you deliver. Or think about this production here, this annual conference. So much of the behind-the-scenes work is done that the public just really never sees. The moving parts of Extension are supported by numerous funding streams whose dollars are held in countless funds and amounts assigned to a multitude of people and projects spanning a variety of fiscal and calendar years. Who do we have here that are in fiscal ops? We've got folks here that handle some of these fiscal operations. Our OSP friends and folks in the college fiscal operation, as well as many of you in unit offices who handle the finances, thank you very much. I've learned it is not easy. If the fiscal complexity is not enough to make your head spin, consider the various programs resourced from a variety of professionals in departments, colleges, and universities throughout the land-grant system and beyond. In many cases, our efforts are the product of collaborative efforts with other agencies and organizations. All of these efforts are ultimately supported by a variety of extension positions that are performing necessary and critical roles in the overall enterprise of extension. So we all have a duty station, right? I mentioned that concept yesterday with the CES folks. We all have a duty station. I loved what Tim Kite said. We've all got that 20 square feet. That's where you are right now. Where you are right now. How are you working there? So truth number one can also apply to people. I mean, here we are. Look at us. Look at the people sitting next to you. You probably know them by name and perhaps what they do or where they are assigned. You may know them better than that, but you still really only know a small fraction of who they really are. Similarly, your work may seem pretty simple and straightforward to the casual observer, but we all know there are a variety of other aspects to your work, your life, and to you. So I've met and gotten to work with so many people over the years, and especially during the past 6 months that I hadn't worked with before. In this role, I've also had the opportunity to see and appreciate coworkers in ways that I had not before. We need to make time to better understand the world and the people around us. Truth number two. See if my antique phone's still keeping time. We're good. Truth number two, it's okay if you don't have all the answers. And heck, I think it's okay if you don't even know all the questions, right? What is it you like about working in extension? Anyone? Thank you. Have a good night. I think what makes extension work so fun and challenging is that no 2 days are alike. Is that true? No 2 days are alike. Like us, every community is different, every farmer is different, every family is different. Of course, no two kids are alike, we know that. These differences mean that no one answer works in every situation, and therefore we are constantly working to find answers, right? Extension professionals are practiced at this and are eager to work with others to find answers. We do that well. If you heard Karen Bruns, her National Ruby lecture in the fall, you also know extension professionals have an opportunity to help focus the questions. And so our futuring and visioning efforts over the past months have reminded us that we are facing and will continue to face issues and concerns of ever-increasing complexity. Think discovery themes. Whether we are talking complex societal issues or opportunities and challenges for how we address them organizationally, we can be more successful when we work in a team environment to identify the key questions and seek collaborative, innovative solutions. These collaborative approaches are critical in programming administration, from a neighborhood to an EERA, to your county, statewide, regionally, or even nationally. This one, next one, you may have a little exception to. People are inherently good, and their motivations are generally well-meaning. All right, so given what is going on in the world around us, if you watch the news, you may say this cannot be true. Truth number three may be a stretch, and while I realize that the Peanuts characters do not completely and accurately reflect reality, I'm fairly confident that truth number three applies when we consider the people we get to work with. on a regular basis. And while in our busy lives we have had occasional experience with others that really makes us question the depth of the gene pool, when it comes to Extension folks and our program partners, I am reassured that humanity has potential to do great things with the most altruistic of motivations. We're so fortunate to work where we do, with the opportunity to interact with so many different people. The frontline staff get to greet longtime customers every day and meet new people too. Oftentimes we are directing visitors to the License Bureau, the Auditor's Office. In Ag and Men, for example, it seems we are directing people to the elevator, the correct floor. The constant question is this the basement? Or how do I get back to my car? We respond to inquiries and the occasional complaint via phone and email too, and by and large our interactions with the public and our program partners are positive and impactful. Think about our Friends of Extension winners from last night, or the amazing impact stories that we describe in our annual report or annual legislative luncheon materials. Yet, when we are quick to critique the decisions of others, we may later become aware of the context and additional information that helps explain their motivations for the decision or the policy change. For example, how many of you cheered when you heard about the recently revised travel reimbursement policy? Okay, I'll admit my first reaction to some of the reimbursement changes were less than supportive. However, I could appreciate the motivations behind the changes when I learned this decision is helping to fund additional student aid. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Additional student aid between $1,000 and $1,500 per student of at least one student from every county in our great state of Ohio. So I think, okay, that's pretty cool. So as our busy lives have become even more busy, it is easy to react and judge in haste. And when we stop and consider the context or the background story, we should see things, I think, a little more differently. So truth number 4. I think people do really want to see you succeed. And so even though it's a complex world filled with challenges and hurdles, and we have to work with others, realize people really do want to see you succeed. And here's an example I think most everyone in the room can relate to. How many can still remember their first Extension interview? By all the hands, there's got to be a lot of hands going up here. Yeah, first Extension interview. Could you sense how those at the table wanted you to do well? Hopefully. We pull for the candidates to feel at ease, to feel relaxed. We want them to breathe, feel good about themselves and their experience. In short, we want them to succeed. So I will never forget how badly I felt when I had a candidate for a county educator position come into the room. She found her seat at the head of a long table full of people. This is Crawford County. So Mary Beth, you'll remember this room. It had 1972 tri-colored green, gold, and some weird color shag carpet, paneling, and the table, it felt like it went from here to the other end of the room. And there was about 6 inches on each side of the table. So once you got in, you never got out. It was always hot in that room too. So that didn't help this particular candidate interview. And so she walked in the door, saw the room full of people, how cramped it was. And you know these county interviews, we must have 50 people on the interview committee. I don't think that's typical. So she proceeded to turn about 50 shades of red. This is after she sat down. And then she burst into tears. Yeah. And so after about 5 seconds of that, she popped out of the chair and shot out the door, and we never heard from her again. I still feel bad. I don't even know her name. I can't even find her on my phone to tell her how badly I feel. So granted, this truth number 4, is probably nothing unique to extension. And how many of you have participated, for example, in a 5K race or a half or even a full marathon? I know we have some marathon runners here. Wow, look at these hands. What amazes me, even if you're not the runner, when you see the coverage on TV, the streets are lined with people. I think complete strangers cheering on complete strangers, right? Think about the Ohio Stadium when the Buckeyes play, 100,000 plus people, all cheering to see what? Not their team lose. They want to see them win. Truth number 5. There's only 5 truths, don't worry. We'll keep this on schedule. So what you think you can do and what you can actually do, I think, are seldom the same. There's a couple ways to think about this. And again, I think this truth applies to much of life in general. In school, for example, you may have thought, if I can stay up all night for each of the next 3 days, I can get those papers finished, study for the exams, and still have time to hang out with my friends this weekend. Nobody ever thought, right, in this room. No one ever thought that. So this might be considered youthful ignorance. It might also be unbridled optimism. But in most cases, I think we come to realize the distance between such idealism and what is in fact reality is pretty far. So when it comes to our extension work, I know how excited we get, right? We're nearing that time of year when we can get into our computers, our green screen computers in the lunchroom and plug into RIV and start to think about our annual plan of work. I know how many of us look forward to that. We really identify the variety of things that we want to achieve in the coming year. And the list is always long, right? And we think, I want to do all these things. We can't wait to visit with our supervisor to explain our excitement and enthusiasm for this to-do list. Invariably, there are other opportunities that arise and program challenges that can impact what we had originally envisioned, correct? How many have had that happen? Or your supervisor might say, well, if we add all this up, you've got like 5 years worth of work crammed into the next 6 months. So take a look at these 3 individuals. Do you think that they had any idea how far-reaching the impact of their actions might be? Do you even know who these 3 individuals are? Let's start with the one on the upper left. Shout it out. Anyone? That's Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington, born as a slave, taught himself to read, and later became the first president of what is now known as the Tuskegee University at the age of 25. That's pretty cool. Who's the stylish woman in the middle? There you go. Don't give her any ideas. That would be Queen Isabella of Spain. You may have heard of her. She had actually commissioned the voyages of Christopher Columbus to the New World. What about the handsome stud on the right? All right, nice. This is a picture of A.B. Graham in his younger days. So A.B. Graham is the inventor of the graham cracker, which led to the wonderfully crumbly bottom section to cheesecake and key lime pie. He's also credited for this thing we know of as 4-H and OSU Extension. So honestly, when you think about these individuals, do you think they set out to achieve what they are known for today? So the known or routine, think about Tim Kite. The known or the routine is predictable, it's safe, it's neat, it's tidy, it's comfortable. But these folks are proof that what is possible when we take chances. Right? That we are capable of so much more than we think we are. Our ambition is what stretches us to grow and get better. Why should we dream at all if we decide to limit how big we dream? So in closing, I learned a lot in this interim role. Get the cool phone back out. Uh-oh. This will be brief. I've been reminded of many things that we often overlook when we find ourselves in the midst of the known routine. So we're an idealistic, ambitious, and supportive bunch of people who find meaning in the ability to work with others, the vast majority of whom make our jobs fun and rewarding. We are part of an enterprise that is much larger and complex than the little corner of the operation we call home, our little 20 square feet. And this both supports our work and causes us to scratch our heads and say, at times, but fortunately not in equal parts. So we're winding up the first year of Extension's second century of work, and there's much to be excited about. Yesterday we heard college and university leadership re-emphasize the value of our contributions to the larger university land-grant mission. We were also challenged to continue our discussions around futuring to help us identify opportunities and better prepare for uncertainty. We are welcoming our next Extension Director, Roger Rennekamp, in a little more than 3 weeks. Not that I'm counting. It's actually kind of fun, I gotta admit, it's kind of fun. And our sense of curiosity and innovation and focus on the future are as high as ever before. So these opportunities to stretch ourselves, our organization, and the world around us are abundant. Remember, you are part of something bigger. Think about how you fit, identify how you can better contribute, and challenge yourself to grow. Help those around you do the same by sharing your experiences and your enthusiasm with others. It is why we are here. So as Tim Kite indicated this morning, how we choose to respond to the world around us is critical. Who's ready to make toast? Thank you.